Welcome, Farewell fans. I am your host, MNG, and welcome to another one-on-one interview. And today we have Dr. Phil here with us, and we're going to talk about something that you may not even recognize yourself, but self-sabotage and the impacts that it have not only on ourselves, but also our family members, our relationships, and even our working relationships. No, we will sabotage ourselves from any opportunity that's possible. Even as fathers, we're going to sabotage ourselves and doubt ourselves and just prevent ourselves from moving forward and being successful with that doubt. So, Dr. Phil, can you just give us a little bit of enlightenment on your idea of self-sabotage?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks so much for inviting me on. I'm honored and appreciate this. Well, over the last 30 years, researching thousands of people, I was able to uncover a hidden sabotaging trait that we're born with. Yes, you're born with it and you can't get rid of it. And when I first found it, I was like, there's no way, this is too simple. So I went out to try to disprove it. And what we found over those decades is that not only we proved it, we found a way to switch it off instantly and it works 100% of the time.
Okay.
So I call it the inborn sabotaging trait. It doesn't undermine us. It actually protects us from the very success that we seek, because that success is subconsciously more painful to achieve and sustain. So we never go to that point and we go back doing what we're doing. So self-sabotage, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not an idiot, or the other 100 words you say to yourself or your ex or
Right.
any other people. You're just in self-protection. You're just protecting, because there's only two things we do. We protect, we grow,
Right.
we expand, we contract, we give and take. So that's what self-sabotage truly is. You're just protecting yourself.
See and I think that's what everybody needs to learn, is that it's okay to protect yourself. And like you said, we have those two modes, but at the same time, being able to shut it off and propel forward, right?
Yep.
So, Phil, could you start by sharing a bit about your journey with your daughters, especially how you rebuilt that strong, unbreakable bond after such a challenging time?
Yes. So real quick about me a little bit. So I had a very tough divorce, very, very tragic and uh, turbulent divorce.
Yeah.
But before that, I went through some major stuff. But during this whole time, this was happening at the exact same time. And that time, my daughter almost committed suicide. They said that if my ex came home 10 minutes later, she would have been dead.
Mhm.
And my ex put a major wedge between me and my kids. And you guys out there, I was in my 30s. Okay. So I fully understand that's probably most likely your audience is listening to this. So, and I realized that I was doing the dad thing, right? The divorce dad thing of guilt, just giving and making sure that, I was the good guy and all this other stuff, right? And not realizing I was creating more problems and taking advantage of, my ex. You should, like, I was supposed to get Christmas. She took my kids out to, the Bahamas or somewhere on the 23rd on, and I couldn't be with my kids. Right. So it was like, all right, do I then do a court order and piss everybody off? And it was just kind of like letting that happen. It was continuing the abuse. Right.
Right.
Until one day I said, if I never see my children again, I'm okay. And I really meant that. And what that did, it allowed me to surrender. It allowed me just to fully let that go. And what happened was amazing. For the next few months, things started to shift. They realized, because there's an old saying, when you chase, they flee. When you flee, they chase, right?
Right.
And we started building our relationships, things like that. And now they were 8 and 14. They're 6 years apart. And going through the teenage years, that was an interesting experience. But now they're 32, 26, and they still call me daddy. They text with me. They want to hang with me, which to me is the greatest compliment a child can ever give you. I mean, on the 21st birthday and the 30th, you were like, hey, come down to AC. I live in Jersey, and, hang out with us. And I'm like, what do you mean? That didn't register because I didn't want to see my parents. I want to hang with my friends. And it was like, no, don't feel guilty. No, I am. And one of the things I always told my children, I said, I never want to hear you say, I have to go over to dad's. If you say I have to go, don't come. I want you to say, I want to go over to dad's. So that was some of a clear boundary that I told them. So they felt that, wow, they didn't feel that guilt and I was not going to judge them. And I understood, hell, they're kids and things like that. They have to have that expression, but I'm here when you need me. And if you fall, hopefully you don't hit your head on the cocktail table and you just fall on your ass, right? That's our biggest fear. But like I used to tell my oldest one, I know the road you're going down. It isn't pretty, but if you
Right.
have to go through that, who am I to stop you? But I'm here, and all I had to do was, if you worry, you send negative energy to your children, right? As well
Right.
as you just diminish your own being. All I was doing is just sending them love and light. That's all I could do, and just trust enough in the universe or God or higher conscience, whatever your audience believes in, and just know that it's going to happen and hopefully everything turns out well. And it did for me.
And you know what? I understand that. And I understand that from a lot of different perspectives. And I'm going to name three of them. One, I do understand when your child or family member is in the mindset of, you know, of a point of no return and wants to commit suicide. I have had family members that wanted to commit suicide, and it was very damaging for our family, is trying to understand and be there for them and support them in a way. So I can imagine the situation that you were going through during that time, that your daughter was trying to commit suicide. So I sympathize with you there. I understand the feeling, and everything. The other part of it is, my dad didn't wasn't in my life growing up, and I went back to him. I went to go and learn more about myself, learn more about my father's family. That was my decision. Even through all the things that my mom did to keep us separated, and it was active mode of separation. Like, she was actively keeping us separated. And I know more now that I'm older than I was when I was younger. And this happened to my dad twice, because I have other siblings where he tried to be in their lives. And I was there. I was in the car, seeing him go and try to be in their life. And ultimately having to give up, because you're trying to continuously try to fight the fight, and you're not winning. You're trying to do it the diplomatic way and go in there and have the conversation without involving the court system. Because then when you do involve the court system, you're giving up time, you're giving up money, you're trying to have the court trying to see your point of view, and they don't see it, and
Mm-hmm.
you still end up losing on both ends. Okay, so that's the other point that I understand. And the third piece is, going through, I haven't been through a divorce, but just going through a relationship where you're trying to be the best person that you're trying to be for somebody else. And even through the turmoil, even through all the arguments, even through all the fighting and the name calling, you're still trying to be the better person, because you want to see your child. You want to be there, but that person has so much spite and demise towards you and disgust. Then it's kind of like, no, I don't want you around. I don't want to be around you. I don't want your presence to be on our kids. And it's like, well, I did my part, and I'm still trying to do my part. Our What is happening between us shouldn't have no effect on the kids. And it's been statistically proven time and time again how important it is for a father to be in the child's life, and even, it's already bad enough two households has its own damage, but an absent father has more damage than just two households.
Absolutely.
So I definitely understand your story from a multitude a point of views, because I've seen it in so many different ways and areas. I'll share just in a similar situation to yours, being called out at 1 o'clock in the morning for an incident, not having a whole story, not knowing what's going on, but arriving to ambulances and police officers, standing outside of a house, and only thing that I'm hearing from people around me that is blood everywhere. The mindset behind that is, and the mindset and the energy for that night, and you're traumatized, not knowing that yesterday you talked to somebody and they were laughing and cheering, only to find out 5 hours later that they try to commit do the unspeakable. And that's one of the things why we talk about mental health so much, because you never really know what somebody is really going through in any case. And you try to support them as much as possible. But even sometimes that's not enough.
No, it's their journey, right? And I'm a strong believer is it's their journey. I can just support them, but if I try, here's one of the things is that you're not responsible for anyone. You're
Right.
responsible for yourself, but you are responsible to them. When I first heard this years ago was that anybody that's in your life, you're responsible to them. I'm like, that makes no freaking sense, right? But then I realized that they're in my life for a reason, whether or not it's for me to help them, for them to help me, or a combination. It's usually the combination. It's never a one-way street, right?
Right.
And when you realize when you're trying to be responsible for that person, you actually take away and weaken them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, you and I go to the gym, okay? And you go after the dumbbells and I go, no, I got this, man. And I start doing this. I go, how do you feel? Feel the burn? And you'd be looking at me like I'm out of my freaking mind, okay? Who's getting stronger? I am. Who's
Mm-hmm.
getting weaker? You are. That's what happens when you are you're responsible for that person. You're trying to take the pain away because, man, after the second day, it's going to hurt, right? But I'll take that
Yeah.
for you. But you actually weaken the person. So, so when you do that, you're actually being selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Something to think about. You're being selfish compared to, look, I'm here to support you. I'm there for you. I'm not going to do it for you, but I'll be there for you. Because by doing though, you need to help that person understand that life doesn't happen to you. It happens from you, through you, and for you. And that everybody in your life is you. That person you can't stand is a part of you can't stand. They're just showing up to show you that part that you're not dealing with. That's why you're pissed off at them. How dare you come in here and remind me of what I'm doing, right? And I've
Exactly.
had people like, there's no freaking way that person is me. And I would sit down with them and I would show them that they're there, and they would say, holy crap, I'm doing the same thing to myself. And then they can shift. So when that person comes in that upsets you, they represent all the thousands of other people and events that represent that, but they're representing it because you're doing it to yourself. 100%. Never seen anybody not see that at all. So something to think about compared to when people think that things, it's not my responsibility, it's not my fault. It's always your responsibility of taking something or thinking, is this really truly my problem to solve?
Right. And you're absolutely right. I think that we take too much responsibility over other people, trying to, and some men, I'm not gonna say all men, but some men we're natural problem solvers. We're trying to solve a problem. It's just embedded to, we see a problem, I know how to solve it.
Right.
So in instances where you see somebody that you love that's in pain or whatever, you're always trying to absorb. Even with kids, you're trying to, how can I fix the issue? And sometimes some issues are just unfixable. You have to listen. You have to
Right.
be a shoulder to lean on.
Right.
And as a man, and well, I'm not gonna say as a man, but as for me, it has been taking like some rewiring to know that I can't fix all issues, but sometimes it just requires listening and sometimes asking the question, how can I support you?
Can I tell you two things for
Sure.
your audience? So with that, especially men, women end of it, one of the things I tell men to do, or my clients, and I go, as she starts to talk, you say, excuse me, is this for you to vent or for you to find a solution?
Yeah.
If she says, I'm here to vent, you shut your mouth, do this, put duct tape over your mouth and just freaking listen, because you're helping solve the problem. Because I've seen it even with my own wife. They'll
Yeah.
come up with the solution. And
Yeah.
you just being there, you are solving it for them, or at least it comes out, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing with children, I remember my one daughter when turning 13, and with my ex, they were like at each other's throat and calling, whatever. And I just stayed out of it. And one time my daughter started on me, and I went, whoa, 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 time out. Number one, I'm not your friend, I'm your father. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect you to talk to me that way. However, if I talk to you that way, then you have all the right to talk to me in the same manner. That was a game changer. My daughter, we were just talking about this like 2 weeks ago, because I remember when you said that, and a few times she would start and then she herself would stop and go, okay, I'm sorry. All right. So I gave her permission if I did that to her. It's so powerful. So I hope you guys are writing that down, who are listening to that. But those two are going to save you a lot of time, frustration, and people yelling at you. Because as soon as you start in that yelling position, or trying to defend you, you're giving people bullets. You're giving them ammunition to fire continuously on you.
Yeah.
When you stay in a more of a neutral end and being in, you're more in control. And then people just, now they look like the fool.
That's true. Now, you mentioned the relationship, with your, discovering a relationship with your daughters. Could you tell us, could you tell us more about what you uncovered and how it helped you shift the dynamics between you and your daughters?
So it goes back to what I discovered. And what I did was I found that there's actually three traits that make up who we are. And we call them the director trait, the supplier trait, and the communicator trait. Because that's all we do as humans. We communicate, direct, and supply. Once we take those those three traits and put them in a sequence called the protective sequence, right? And the protective sequence is your superpower, then a bridge between your superpower, and then that inborn sabotaging trait. And they work like this. And once I know that, we came up with 6 sequences of human behavior. So there's only 6 people in the world. So once I know your sequence, I can tell you everything about you and never ask you a question. If
Okay.
you had a significant other, I can ask you a couple of questions, tell you everything about her, and then tell you how you two interact, and still not ask a question, because it got down to that science of how these sequences react. Once I understood my children's sequences, I then were able to talk with them and support them in the way they needed to be supported, not in the way I thought they needed to be supported, which was really how I needed to be supported.
Mm.
So I was able to use their subconscious words to help neutralize and help them through it. Like my youngest one was bullied, never knew that, right? I didn't get on the phone and scream at the school. I said, okay, let's find out the benefit. And she's a particular saboteur. There's only 3 saboteurs in the world, by the way. So she's particularly one of them. And I
Okay.
helped her to express and to actually confront her bullies. And they backed off. And
Okay.
we found the benefit of why she was bullied, right? People don't realize that, right? Oh, as a diversity, I have to come to my child's aid. No, you let that child understand what to do, and they have to do it. If not, as they grow up, they're going to look for other people to blame or feel entitled, or whatever the case may be. So I still remember the first day when she got a participation medal in gymnastics. I was like, for what? To show up? But that's another story. Sorry, guys, I digressed. But so every time my children were going through things, I said, you got 3 choices. You can look for the detriment, the benefit, or it just is, right? So
Right.
by doing so, I helped them, and that was my responsibility as a parent, not to solve it for them, to help them through it, to find out how they can deal with it in their way, not in the way I'm forcing them to do it.
Mm. So when you talk about the And one thing I want to say is that I do believe in empowering. Um, and empowering goes a long way. So for any leaders that are out there, and you could be a leader of your family, you could be a leader of an organization. Empowering people to make the right decisions mean that you train them correctly.
Right.
That's what that means. If you can empower a person to make the right decisions, then you train them correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about your kids, you're raising them to be, critical thinkers. You raise them to be effective and to be able to make decisions on their own and make the right decision that's best for them with little or minimum intervention, right? From a parent. No, they'll come to you and be like, so yeah, I did this. And you'll be like, you know what? That was a good move. I can't see
Mm-hmm.
anything that you did wrong there. So allowing kids to go out there and make mistakes, make decisions, and then if they do make a mistake or if something is happening to them, and guiding them and giving them the power to go ahead and face that challenge, does make them a little more better off and critical thinking going on in the future, because then they're like, okay, well, I have these skills, I have more tools in my bag to be able to effectively handle a situation, without saying, oh, mom, dad, I need help. I don't know what to do.
Right.
Cause,
Yeah.
cause we've heard that from kids all the time, even when they're older, I don't know what to do. And it could be
Mm-hmm.
something that they just never came across, and it's understandable. But for something just like, well, we kind of dealt with something like this before, oh, well, I don't know what to do. It
Yeah.
happens. But what I want to ask you is what are the three saboteurs,
Okay.
traits or personalities?
So before I get into this, you sparked something in my brain, if I may tell
Okay.
you. So when you're talking about leaders and business owners and stuff. So when I talk to my business owners, I ask them this question: if you treated your clients the way you treated your family, would you still have clients?
Mm.
And why would people treat their family differently? You're an idiot, or scream at them, whatever, but their clients, they don't. Because there's a consequence. So with the consequence, if they treated their clients like their family, then they get bad reviews. They would then leave. They wouldn't, the income would drop, everything else. With the
Yeah.
kids and their family and wives or whomever and husbands, the reason is they're still there unless someone goes, I want a divorce or I'm running away. There's
Right.
a consequence. So I tell people, especially business owners, treat your family like clients. When people have done that, we've seen a shift in the dynamic of that as well. So just want to throw that at you, and thanks for sparking that in my brain.
That's good.
So there are three saboteurs. One of them is that you're scattered, you're all over the place. You start one thing and then you don't finish it, and you hate to be told what to do. You wing things, you wait to the last minute type of thing.
Okay.
And then you can go to the other extreme and get hyper focused. Like you have a time distortion. Hey, honey, I'll be out in 5 minutes. And 5 hours later, you say, hey, I'm here. Right. And you're focusing for 2 days and you're like, I got it done. But then you realize that everything else is scattered and you didn't focus on, and then you go back being scattered. So that is trying to focus between the scatteredness and hyper focus to find that balance.
Okay.
The other one is the person overly gives. They don't set boundaries. They have a hard time saying no. People take advantage of their kindness, and when they do, they're like, why aren't they reciprocating what I'm giving? And these people, they don't value themselves. They're the ones that will give product away or service or things like that. They give their time away. And then when people don't reciprocate, they finally get to the point, go, you know what, hell with you. I'm taking from me and get away from me. And then they feel guilty. And then they go back and overly give. So
Yeah.
for them, they have to find the balance between giving and taking. The third one is the person who doesn't express themselves. They're more reserved, they're inward, they're really good listeners, but they have a hard time disconnecting. And they have to process things too long and too much. And verbally, they can't really come back with a comeback as quickly as they would send a long text or a long email so they can check it out and make sure. And they have a hard time confronting, and they don't want to feel stupid or embarrassed. And then they can go to the other extreme, and then two things: they can be the volcano because they're the pressure cooker and they just explode, or they tell the person under breath, you're an idiot, still not knowing what they're thinking or feeling, and then they go back and go into their shell. So that's about expressing and communicating in that different ways. So those are the three saboteurs. Now, do we
Wow.
have all three within us? Absolutely. But you
I was going to
use
ask that.
one more, and then what happens is the other one becomes your superpower. So for your
Okay.
leaders, um, if those of you ever heard of anybody that talked themselves out of a sale,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
I work with a lot of VPs of sales, okay? And I always ask them this question: what do you need? What does that person need? And the majority of them go communication skills and say, no, that's their superpower. The reason why they're over talking is because of their saboteur. And once they understand that and they use the antidote, instantly their communication becomes more effective. We've seen people go from 30% closing rates to 90% in a couple of weeks. People making thousands of dollars more because now they're not over talking. Plus, we give them a 6-step blueprint that I came up for sales. But that's the same thing. People are overly thinking. That's their superpower. They get stuck in perfectionism and things like that. Other people get their feelings involved and everything else, and that gets them stuck. So what we show them is that their superpower actually can trip up their saboteur. And again, they all work together in kind of a seesaw fashion.
Okay. Oh man, I started kind of figure out like, man, some of those are me. Like,
Right. But there's
I
one that you mostly do when you
yeah,
go into a stressful mode. We're only talking about when you get stressed and in protection. Other than that, if you're in the flow, you're actually using your antidote without you even knowing it, right?
right.
And but once you understand how that all works, then it's like, wow, that's why our goal is for someone to use their antidote. The antidote. So let me explain what the antidote is. So when you start to release your personal professional power and you hit that wall, your saboteur kicks in to protect you. Okay, that's all it's doing. But imagine when you hit that wall, as you start to contract, there's only one thing that's causing it, and that's your inborn sabotaging trait. Once you know that, imagine that, you can now use what's called the antidote, the exact opposite to the saboteur. So you must go into growth. So now you're doing this compared to doing this. So you ever see the domino masters? They create this big domino and they push this one domino, it goes, right?
Yeah.
Let's say the balloons release, right? What's the
Right.
last thing you see? The balloons. That's your imposter syndrome, your anxiety, your over talking, your scatteredness, your not doing the things you need to do. Everything you see what? Last. So what do? We take our cope methods and do what? We put them on the balloons, not the one domino. The one domino is the inborn sabotaging trait that causes every negative emotion that you experience. And we prove that. So when you push it this way, you go down the road of frustration and desperation. But when you use the antidote, the exact opposite, you must go into inspiration, motivation, and growth, 100% guaranteed, never fails. So it's
Wow,
impossible to self-sabotage yourself when you use the antidote. And I've worked with thousands of people and no one's ever proven that wrong.
man. We
That's why
go
there's nothing like this in the world. This is why I have this strong. That's why I'm on this podcast. I have this strong responsibility. When you're given something that no one else has, you feel this strong responsibility to get this out to the millions. And that's why I left my practice 3 years ago. I used to
okay.
be a chiropractor and a functional medicine practitioner. Thyroid and autoimmune disease was my specialty, and I used this. No one could come to me unless they understood their saboteur, because I tell this story all the time. I had people come in and go, "Hey, I had a pizza." And I'm like, "Yeah, so?" She goes, "I've had pain for 4 days." I said, "I'm glad you had the pizza. Shows you not to reinforce that's what's going to happen. But I'm more curious, what happened that triggered you, that caused you to do that numbing agent that has that 4 days of pain at that moment was less painful than dealing with this trigger?" And we found it was their saboteur. And when they had the trigger, the saboteur would kick in and they would have their numbing agents, from drugs to eating to whatever, right? And
Right.
then when we used the antidote, the exact opposite, two things we found. They lessened their numbing agents or they stopped them. So this is what we find in business. So I never thought about doing this in business, but my patients were making major breakthroughs who were business owners. So I started getting referrals all around the world. I wrote my book, and 3 years ago, I decided to jump ship. At the 35 years, I was done, and now I'm doing this.
So now, so let me ask you this. Keep it on the same topic. Now, you've seen breakthroughs that happen. Business owners, VP of sales, they pretty much did it a complete 180. Okay. So how would, a person, learning about their sabotaging trait, how would they use this to improve relationships?
Great. So we've had people to help them to understand why dating was a problem for them, why they would consistently bring the jerk in, right? Because the jerk was them. We talked about that. And they're like, what? And then when they started changing their vibration and started to be more in their own empowerment, it helped. But I had a woman who was a coach. She took our course. Within 2 to 3, 4 weeks, her relationship with her husband that wasn't doing great started to improve because she understood her sequence and she understood his, but he never knew she was taking the course.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've done with so many relationships, we've saved marriages. I mean, I had a guy one time call me up. I met with him about a month ago, and he calls me up and goes, "All right, I'm going to get a divorce. I'm calling the attorney tomorrow. What can you do?" I was like, "What? Wait a minute." So I said, "Okay, I want to see your wife. Get them in." And I wanted to see if did they hate each other or they were just protecting themselves from each other. And we found they were just protecting themselves from each other, especially when the kids came involved. So once they understood when they would go into that, that protection, the other person would now understand why and then start using their antidote with them and starting to calm that down and diminish the conflict, especially with children and things like that. So in that dynamic with relationships, huge for loving relationships to determine, is it really time to break off because we just not helping each other and it's better to leave and to have other people to expand our meshes, or this is just an experience we're going through that will allow us to evolve. You don't realize when you evolve, you dissolve. They both happen at the same time. It depends on which side you want to look at. So when things are falling apart, they're also falling together. They
Okay.
happen at the exact same time. So in a bio relationship, you have to look at it and go, is this salvageable because we're just in protection mode, or this is to a point where we both need to leave and start something new because we did get a benefit out of this relationship. I tell people all the time, once I realized that it wasn't my wife, but it was what I needed from my ex-wife, that's why she was in my life. If it wasn't her, it would have been somebody else. And when you think it that way, you depersonalize it off of that person and look for the benefit of going, yes, this is happening because it gave me all this information so I can help more people. It allowed me to create this discovery as well. So once you can find a benefit out of anything, there's no need for forgiveness, right? Why would you want to forgive anybody that did something to you if you benefited from it?
Right.
Different thought, right?
Hmm. So, man, I'm all that information has just kind of awakened a lot of things that I had to deal with in life. A lot of my different relationships, walking away from relationships, you know, not realize, well, I did realize that I was self-sabotaging my relationships, but how I dealt with it was I just made excuses to validate why I did what I did.
Yeah, it was easier. It was
it,
subconsciously less painful for you.
it was definitely less painful. And today I was talking to a friend and I was like, sometimes I go back and kind of reminisce on some of my old relationships on, thinking about this topic, going back, I was like, okay, was that really worth it? And then as soon as I'm thinking about what it was really worth it, here I come with a a form of validation, like, well, this was happening, that was happening, and kind of like, okay, yeah, so it probably wasn't really worth it, just kind of just sabotaging, kind of just give myself more validation for why.
Can I disagree with that
Okay. Oh,
respectfully?
oh yeah, yeah.
So it was worth it because, man, you wouldn't be here impacting all these guys if you didn't have that. Why would I want to listen to you if you didn't go through this, man? Why? Right? It's
True.
like, do I go to a therapist that has book knowledge of addiction or do I go to an ex addict? Which one's going to help me more? Who's going to understand me more? So there's your benefit. See, everything I went through some major stuff, man. I lost my practice due to disability and financial ruin, and I can keep on going. All good because I have no regret, because it allowed me to be here, and especially with you, impacting you and other people. See what I'm saying?
Right.
So I would look at every relation you had, because you're going to give these people your brilliance, your experience that they need to know, especially if they're from 25 to 40. I mean, you're not, you're in that range, but in a lot of it, you've gone through that experience. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
care if you're 30, I'm 63, right? So if you're going to give me something that I didn't think about, doesn't mean that I'm your elder, I should know better. Man, you're just giving me some brilliance so that I can help me, right? Because at that moment you have that expertise. Doesn't mean you're better than me. When
Right.
I was a doc, it wasn't that I was better than my patients. We were equal. However, I had more experience, and that was like this. But in their field, they were like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we are all this way. So I want to give you that kudos. I mean, you're here being transparent, right? Look, vulnerability creates credibility, right? You're being
True.
transparent what's going on, and kudos to you, man. I'm really seriously, 100%. And I can imagine, I mean, what you're doing for your audience and the people that are going to continue to go on. And those of you who are listening to this, you better tell your friends to listen to this podcast, because they're going to get a lot out of it. So I just wanted to give that perspective for you.
It's rare that I'm ever speechless, but I appreciate, what you said. I really do appreciate it. And we definitely do what I can for the audience.
Just the truth, man. It's just the
You
truth.
know,
It's not
and
smoking. It's not bringing smoke up your ass, man. Excuse
yes,
my language, but I'm just speaking the truth. I don't do that. Not anymore. Years and years ago, I
years
used to.
ago, hey, I appreciate it. So moving on. So with your extensive experience as a father, have you seen this approach impact families facing tough times? And are there any memorable examples you could share with these insights that made a difference?
So I'll just give you a little more to this. I'm married the second time. Never thought I would ever say the M word. Just letting you know.
I know a lot of people that went through divorce. And it was
Right.
like, I am never getting married again.
Never getting married. I'd be stupid not to. And I have 4 stepchildren and 7 grandchildren. Okay.
Okay.
And I've used this with them, and I've been honored for them to come to me and ask questions and help them through some of the things. So as a father, so one of, oh, okay. I tell this one all the time. It's for,
Okay.
it's just so impactful. So I was doing my workshop for a company, and this guy comes up to me, and he's like really into what we're teaching, and he gets it. He goes, "Look, man, my son's always upstairs playing video games. I can't get him downstairs to interact with the family." So I asked him a few questions. I ascertained his son's sequence. I understood his sequence, and I told him exactly what to do. He calls me back and says, "Man, within the first week, my son was downstairs interacting with the family, and our relationship in the last 2 months skyrocketed." The reason is because he was the one pushing his son back in the room. He was making fun of him and things like that, because that's how he grew up. But because he knew his saboteur, he knew now how to talk to him. He reversed that and did other things, and it flourished. Now, you got to remember, your personal life and your professional life are one. So
Right.
when you use your saboteur, both are affected. When you use your antidote, both are affected. Okay. So he realized he was doing the same thing in his business. And when he started to shift and change how he was talking to his staff and his clients and everything else, the business skyrocketed as well. So that would be one of the things that's very important to understand this about your children. I would say that this other one was a father and his son, and he would consistently take his son's side, which would then piss off his wife. Okay.
Right.
And what I told him is that what he was doing was actually causing a separation and diminishing his mother's power, compared to sitting with the mother. And what we did, we trained the mother. He's a particular saboteur, right? The one that's scattered. If he's sleeping and you're screaming from the other room, "Get up," it ain't happening. I'm telling you. So I kind of told her, you got to get up, you got to do this and this and this. And he started to do that. And then their relationship improved. And we showed that the father needed to co-parent with the mother and then come up with a way so that the child subconsciously doesn't, divide and conquer type of thing.
Right.
So it's sitting down and hopefully with your spouse or the parent that you guys can come up with a united front. That's why it's so important. Those guys are dating right now. You got to have a oh my God, why am I blanking? It's a deal breaker list. So if
Yeah.
you're going to go out on a date, you need to have a deal breaker. They got to be this, 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 and this. All right. So if you go out on a date, and let's say you have 5 of them, and they have 4 out of the 5, there's no second date. Unless the 5th one isn't a deal breaker, it's like, it'd be nice to have. But
Okay.
if it's a deal breaker, there's no second date. Well, I can change her. Well, you know what? Then you got some things to work on for yourself. Never change anybody, but you help them to adapt. It's like my wife, right? My
Right.
new wife, right? She wasn't getting promoted at work. And I was showing her that's what her saboteur was in her antidote. Did I tell her, you got to do this and this and this? We got to change you? No, I said, look, try this. If you want to, are you open? Now she got promoted because she started to express her brilliance and everything else. So I wasn't changing my wife. I was giving her an opportunity for new information and let her determine if that was for her. See the difference?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so those are kind of the 2 examples that just pop up in my mind with this. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Answer my question. Because, and just thinking about myself and my relationship with, my son's mother, we can try to have a decent relationship.
Right.
And she has her triggers about me. I have my triggers about her. And we can rarely ever come to terms on that, that seesaw. We can ever come to terms where, we're seeing eye to eye. And sometimes in seeing eye to eye, it means one of us has to take a back seat, or one of us has to do more for the other in order for the relationship to kind of be on playing fields. She lets her saboteur get the best of her, and I let mine get the best of me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I can be a little scattered. Sometimes I could be a little bit reserved. And it could be the same thing for her as well. And we have hard times, communicating in a sense. And and on another side, when it comes to relationships and dating, I've used to take that approach where I think I could change this person, or I think I could make this person better, or I can help this person grow. And then I ran into a person that did not want to grow. They did not want to get promoted. They did not want to elevate. They wanted to make, and as this was a conversation, I want to make $50,000, travel the world, and that's how I want to live my life. I don't want to be part of the rat race. I don't want to get promoted. I don't want more responsibility. I just want to come to work, do this a little bit, and fly out and see the world. And to me, it was the craziest thing I've ever heard. I was like, you just want to work and make this minimal amount and travel the world. And that's it. Like, you don't want to do that. That's life or whatnot. And I was like, man, I can't imagine. I can't imagine living that way because of my ambition to grow, elevate, and evolve. I couldn't fathom her mindset with just staying in this one place. And in turn, that actually became one of my deal breakers. Like, you don't want to elevate. You want to be stagnant and stay exactly where you are. And in reality, I can't do that. It's just not who I am. And to be with somebody that is like that would it was completely counter to who I was. You know,
Right. And you had an opportunity to continue that and go back to the old you compared to moving forward. Either way was okay. If you needed to regress and have that experience, it's not a judgment. That's where you are. If that's where she's at that moment in time, then that's what she wants. But it's just like, you know what? Thank you for the opportunity to go back to the old me, but this no longer serves me. This serves me. So when you say thank you for any situation in your life, you now take control of it. You acknowledge it. When you acknowledge something, you take control of it. And then you determine going, no, appreciate it. Had that t-shirt. I'm going to sell that t-shirt. Don't want to go through that experience anymore. I'm going to move forward. Because my strong belief is that the universe or God or whatever you want to call your higher power doesn't speak English. It doesn't speak Spanish. It doesn't speak any of that. It speaks experience.
Mm-hmm.
When the experience happens, it's up to you to determine what is this trying to tell me. That's what it's trying to do. It's not bad. It's not good. It just is. It's a benefit for me. When you focus on that is it as a benefit, you walk into the solution compared to staying into the problem. Because if you let that go and just say, you know what, I was talking about this with my daughter. She was doing something, something's really bothering her. I said, look, here's my opinion. You tried to force it twice. It's not happening. To me, if it happens, something bad may happen. And now you got more of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just say, you know what, I have freaking no idea why this is occurring. But you know what? I trust you. I'm going to let it happen. I'm going to disconnect. I'm going to move forward. And that's when the solution comes. And another opportunity comes in, or maybe something else comes in. I see this all the time with my clients. I see it all the time with my own life, with my own family. It's a surrendering. See, surrendering doesn't mean you lose, right? Surrendering is just letting it go. So how I help people understand is that the flower opens up, right?
Right.
Right. It's vulnerable. It surrenders its inner part. When you surrender, you open up so that the pollinators can come and fertilize you. But if you open up, go, oh, that feels uncomfortable. Or, you know what? I should have been blue, right? I'm red. I don't know. I should have been on that location over there. This stinks. There's no pollinators. Does the flower do that? No. It just stays open. It's patient. It surrenders, knowing that it will be pollinated. If not, and it has to die in order to fertilize the ground, it's still a benefit to the collective. Does that help?
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's better, and to make sure that I'm understanding, it's better for us to know when to let go, know when to let go. Well, know when to surrender.
Right.
To just let go.
Yeah. Know when to hold them.
Know when to follow them.
Right. When to walk away, right?
When to walk
That's just
away.
about poker. That was about life, right?
And I believe that what you're saying holds value no matter where you are in your life, no matter who you with in your life. Knowing when to surrender and knowing when to fight.
Right. And surrendering doesn't mean you lose control. Surrender
doesn't.
actually empowers you to stay in control.
And I think that's one of the pieces that some people are missing, because they feel like, oh, if I give up, I'm losing. And sometimes giving up doesn't mean that you're losing. It only means that you take in what happened. You absorb it, you learn from it. And then if the situation presents itself again, you know best to handle it.
Right. Right. So when I was a doc, and I remember this one time, I was a smart ass when I was a doc, but I used to love to fool around with my patients. I still do so with my clients. So a woman comes in and she's diabetic. She is overweight. She feels, tired and some other symptoms. And she was like, I feel like a loser. I failed and all that. And I went, no, you're a huge success. You know exactly how to be a great diabetic, overweight, feeling tired. You did it beautifully. Now we just got to reverse it because you have that same power. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in that, when you fail, you succeed, or when you succeed, you fail. They both are happening at the same time. So when you quit, you have to connect to something else. You start something new. So if I quit the junk food, we don't look at that as, oh, I'm a loser quitting my junk food. No, you're a quitter. You quit junk foods in order to start healthy foods. It's a different thought process there. You're
Right.
still doing it. Depends on how you want to look at it.
Wow. That I'm mind blown. I hope that everybody out there is mind blown. Dr. Phil, I want to thank you for coming onto the show and presenting us with this idea and this mindset of self-sabotage. I know that all the Farewell fans are going to tune in and really start to look at themselves and really going to try to change their mindset. So, Farewell fans, thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. Hey, we're going to catch you on the next go around. Peace.